How's it going, everyone, and welcome to 4Mile Ranch. Today I'm excited to be talking about some pistol red dots from Accufire technology, specifically their Pistol Combat Optic line, or PCO for short, as you're going to hear me refer to them throughout this video. Now, their PCO line has three different offerings: the PCO, the PCO-S, and the PCO-M, which I'll be getting into this video. But first, I do want to put a disclosure out there for the purpose of transparency. Accufire did send these red dots to me. No other money or compensation was exchanged other than they sent me some red dots. I got to mount them on my guns. I get to keep them and keep shooting with them. And in exchange, I just wanted to share my honest thoughts and opinions, and that's what I'm going to be doing. So that's why I like to put that out there so you can decide for yourself if I'm sold out to Accufire or not. But hey, the information's out there. Now, on top of that, if you do want to purchase these, by the time you finish watching this video, you can save yourself 10% off by using discount code 4MR, so full transparency there. I will get a little bit of a kickback that does help support the channel, but it's kind of a cool thing, guys. It's getting you some saved money, and it's supporting a gun tuber when YouTube honestly absolutely hates us. So it's a win-win all the way around. Hopefully everyone's happy, but there you go, disclosures out of the way. Let's get into the PCO review. Like I mentioned, there's three different offerings. The PCO is your standard RMR type footprint, which is appreciated in my opinion, because I think most handguns coming out nowadays are coming pre-milled from the factory with an RMR footprint, so no extra gunsmithing or crazy mounts or adapters are going to be needed, which again, much appreciated. Similar to the PCO is going to be the PCO-S, with the only difference being that it has a solar cell on top, which is going to extend your 20,000 hour battery life of the PCO to a 50,000 hour battery life, which again, pretty crazy. There's, I think, 8,500 roughly hours in a year, maybe a little more than that. I know it's under 10,000, so you're going to get 2 years out of the PCO and 5 years out of the PCO-S, which is way more time than I think is needed for most of us without doing a simple and cheap battery swap every so often. Now, the PCO-M is going to be your RMS Type C footprint, which is the more compact handguns like the Glock 43, or what I used as a host for this video is going to be your SIG macro. So those are really catered to the everyday carry. They're slimmer, they're not as wide, and in such you need a slimmer red dot for those that didn't know. And similarly, the PCO-M to the PCO has a 20,000 hour battery life because it does not have the solar cell on top. Now, all three have a 3 MOA red dot, and they are all powered by a 1632 top-loaded battery, which is, again, appreciated because that means you don't have to remove the red dot from the host to swap batteries. When that time comes, again, we're talking years of use. You don't have to worry about losing that zero when you want to swap batteries, which, sad I have to point that feature out, but there are still competitors out there that don't have that feature. You do have to remove the red dot. These, thankfully, are not one of them. Now, the PCO-S has been mounted on my Sig Sauer Legion X5, chambered in 9mm, over 1,000 rounds through it for the purpose of this review, and not a single issue whatsoever. Now, I do want to point out this is my primary gun. If you've been following the channel, you probably see me shoot this a lot. So I'm kind of putting my money where my mouth is. It replaced my Holosun Optic on this handgun, meaning I actually like it enough that I'm going to be using it, and I'm not just throwing it on there temporarily for a video. It's earned its place on this handgun. Now, on the PCO, it was originally mounted on a 7.62x39 AR-15 style rifle for about 250 rounds, and then I wanted to kind of push things a little bit, and I put it on a 10mm handgun. And for those that don't know, that extra millimeter that doesn't sound like a whole lot really does equate to quite a bit more recoil. There's substantially more powder charge in a 10mm compared to the 9mm, especially when we're talking about defensive rounds, which I did put through this gun with the Optic on it, and once again, no issues whatsoever. I witness marked all the hardware with the supplied hardware, which is included with all these red dots for a variety of thread patterns, and nothing has backed out or loosened on me. Now, the PCO-M I got later in the review, and I only have about 250 rounds through that so far on the SIG macro, and again, no issues to date whatsoever. Unfortunately, I can't vouch for the battery life because I've only had the PCO and PCO-S for about 6 months, so nowhere near the 2 and 5 year mark respectively on those optics. And like I mentioned, the PCO-M I've probably only had about 2 months. It came later in the review process for me. So again, can't vouch for the battery life, but reliability wise, no issues whatsoever. And I think on that note, let's just talk about build quality of these optics. They are all built very solid, very well. There is definitely a very good amount of aluminum material put into the frames. I only point that out because I have a Vortex red dot, for example, where you can tell the frame has a lot less aluminum. It's been banged around. The shape is not what it was when it came from the factory. These are built honestly like tanks. They are very, very well built. Zero issues whatsoever. The lens itself is pretty thick glass, so that it should help these be less susceptible to breaking or failing in that region. On the subject of build and build quality, I actually also want to talk about one of the design features I really enjoy, and that is this little rear notch that is located on all these optics, that on handguns such as this SIG, where the rear sight has to be completely removed to install the red dot, it almost acts as a little indexing rear sight. But on other handguns where the rear sight is still in place, having that notch is actually going to let you use those irons without it interfering with the red dot at all. So you have that little window, little sight window right through the red dot that you can still use your iron sights without that red dot blocking your view. So they really did think of everything, because this was designed by shooters for shooters. So wanted to point that out as well. That's one of my favorite features. Now, speaking of the lens, the optical clarity, which I feel like can be overlooked from time to time in pistol red dot optics, is also phenomenal. There is a little bit of tint, but not much at all. I'm really nitpicky about that, and I do want to talk about that note for just a second. Me personally, it drives me nuts when a red dot optic is heavily tinted. Now, I believe the reason for this, and correct me in the comments, destroy me guys if I'm wrong on this, but that increases how well the reflection works, which means you don't have to have the emitter turned up as bright to see that red dot in really bright environments. Now again, these red dots are completely capable of being brighter than what's needed in the bright sun. I live in Texas, it's summertime. I guarantee the sun is plenty bright where I live, and no issues whatsoever. And again, I get 5 years out of this, 2 years out of the others. That is more than good for me. I don't want to tint the lens to get 10 years, right? That's fine. Why is that important? Well, it lets you use it with night vision optics for those of you that are into shooting at night. And I did want to test that for you and see how well they perform, because I don't believe Accufire actually advertises these as night vision compatible red dots, but they work just fine on the lowest setting, and sometimes even the second to lowest setting, depending on the ambient light I was shooting at. No issues whatsoever, good to go as night vision red dots. And one more note on that, the red dot on a handgun is a really great way to shoot with night vision without getting really complicated like you see some of the rifle setups, for example, where you have to have the raised mount to shoot with night vision. It's a whole, you think shooting's expensive, get into night vision. And for those of you guys that already have, you know what I'm talking about. The handgun makes it really easy, intuitive. You just bring it up to your eye level and no crazy mounting is needed. So this is a great gateway drug into shooting, at night as well. So another perk there. Now, last note on the lens is going to be the parallax, which for me, again, that's kind of a big critiquing point on red dot optics. Typically, cheaper optics are associated with worse parallax, and these, honestly, pretty impressed on the lack of parallax. Now, Accufire advertises up to 2 MOA at 33 yards or less. I'd say that's probably pretty accurate. I did see a little bit of a shift around the 20-yard mark, which I will show you guys here. It's definitely notable, although pretty subtle, if you ask me. Now, testing it out to 50 yards, it completely dropped off and fell away. No parallax whatsoever. So their actual advertisement of the up to, not necessarily 2, but up to 2 MOA at less than 33 yards is honest and accurate. So now that you know that they're built well, they feel very, high quality in my opinion. I've had zero issues whatsoever. I kind of want to just touch on the concept of pistol red dot optics to kind of close my thoughts on this video. And I started out as someone who refused to use pistol red dots originally. I really, really enjoyed just your streamlined, classic iron sights. I was kind of afraid and stubborn for a little bit that if I started shooting with anything other than iron sights, like your pistol red dots, I would get kind of too used to the red dot and it would make me trash when shooting on iron sights. And that's just not the case. There's a bit of a learning curve when you first start shooting through pistol red dots. It's a different kind of indexing because you're not lining up, so many things. It is point and shoot, but you kind of have to, find that dot. a little bit. And I know that sounds weird, but once you try it for the first time, you'll see what I mean. So anything has a learning curve, and once you get used to that, I can't stress enough how fast and efficient it is to just put a single dot on the target rather than having to line up a front and rear sight and then also finding that target. It is just miles and miles more efficient. Now, I wish I could give the person who said this credit. I don't know if it was on social media or YouTube somewhere, so give credit in the comments below, guys, if you know who said it. But they basically said it in 2023, if you're scared to put a red dot on a handgun, you're essentially firearm Amish. And as funny as that sounds, it's true. So don't be stubborn like me if you're trying to resist change. Even the Army, I believe, is going to be issuing their M17s from Sig Sauer with red dots on them. And if you are familiar with the military, sometimes they are so stubborn and conservative on change. It's, hey, you're doing it this way or it's wrong. The fact that they're going that direction tells you that there are definitely substantial benefits to the red dot optic on handguns. So just wanted to leave you with that thought. It is incredibly fast, it's efficient. So if there's anything I didn't cover, please leave a comment below. I try to be as responsive as possible. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to stop by the channel. And as always, guys, have a good one.